This here with my partner Fred, myself, and we're going to talk about some interesting items today. Fred's going to bring up some humor. I'm going to talk a little bit about icing and some other subjects that you might find entertaining. So without further ado, I want to welcome you to our channel. I want to thank you for subscribing. I hope you're enjoying yourself, and if you have any more subject matter that you'd like us to cover, please let us know. We would have no problem looking it up, and if you want to come on our show and talk about anything aviation, whether it's humorous, serious, or just some of your stories, we'd love to have you. And I'm sure that the flying public out there would love to hear your stories also. We have over 230,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for coming on board with us. Continue to like, subscribe, and share our videos, and can't just thank you enough. So Fred, tell us about your humorous stories.
Well, air traffic control has a lot of tension and drama to it, yes, but there's a lot of humor too. And through the years, you acquire lots of friends. You know, people that recognize you on the frequency, airplanes that we recognize the call signs. And as you start to talk to these people more and more, you may be looking at a scope with just little blips on it. Eventually, you meet these people. And I have a list of friends that I've made through the years. Time-wise, we're talking probably 50 years now. Don't ask me where the time goes. But one of the first ones I had was Captain Sal. And Captain Sal was a legend in his own mind. He moved in the neighborhood on the next block from where my house was. And when I went over there, I walked in, introduced myself, and he tried to throw me out. He flew for American, and he hated air traffic controllers. We argued, we talked, and we became friends. And we became friends through a lot of years. There were times when he would have a problem with air traffic and call me, and times where I would have a problem with somebody on American and call him. Had this one situation where I was working till 12 at night, and it was getting slow, so we put a bunch of airspace together. I had an American that Washington Center called and hadn't spoken to them for like 300 or 400 miles. We're trying all different kinds of procedures to get him up on the frequency, because he had to start down to get into LaGuardia, and never got him. I asked another American to try calling through his company, never got him. And the first American I asked to help me asked if I had gotten him. I said no, and he's gone through all of Washington for about 400 miles. The next thing I hear on the frequency is, "Are you going to start me down, or am I going to get shot down?" And I look at my manual controller, and we both laughed. I said, "Did you hear what I heard?" And I said, "Aircraft calling in New York, say call sign." He says, 4. I said, "American 4, is that you?" He says, "That's right. You're going to start me down, Sonny?" And I said, "American 4, you know, descend and maintain." He starts down, and I figure it's one of my friends from American recognized my voice and started laughing. No laughter. And a few miles goes by, and American 4, how was your flight up from Dallas? He says, "Listen, Sonny, you do your job and I'll do mine." I said, "Well, I happen to think I do my job well, and you came on here ready to bite my head off. I wanted to know what the problem was. Do you always have such a good working relationship with controllers?" He says, "Listen, Sonny, you do your job and I'll do mine." Okay. So now I switch him over to the next controller, but I'm expecting one of my pilot friends to come on the frequency laughing. Nothing. So I call the other controller and I give him my phone number at home. And I said, "Ask this guy to give me a call after he lands. I'd like to know what the problem was." And the guy calls me up at home. It's probably 12:30 at night. And, yeah, I said, you know, and he gets on the phone. I said, yeah, this is Fred Shuffler from New York Center. I was talking to your flight, and, you know, we kind of got into an argument. He says, that's right, Sonny. You do your job, and I'll do. He keeps calling me Sonny. And I said, well, I think I do my job well, and that's why I wanted to talk to you. You can't go running around thinking you can talk to controllers like that. And I thought I was treating you very well. I asked how long he had been a pilot, and he said, longer than you've been a controller, Sonny. I said, oh, so can you tell me how long you've been a pilot? He says, I said, oh, listen, Grandpa, can you tell me how long you've been a pilot? And he said a few words that weren't Merry Christmas and hung up. So the next day I go into work and I got a hold of my boss and I said, I don't know what was going on with this guy, but somebody needs to straighten him out. And they pulled the tapes and they listened to him. And the final decision was that I should get a letter of reprimand because I harassed him asking where he had been for 400 miles. That's one story. Okay, the aspect of Sal, back to good old Sal. And here I was working southwest of New York, southwest of Atlantic City, and we're in a hold for Kennedy. I'm on the frequency and somebody comes over and says, there's a pilot that wants to talk to you. I said, okay, put him on this frequency, and it was Sal. He says, Freddie, I really got to get into Kennedy quick. I said, really? He says, yeah, really. I said, it's important? He says, yeah. I said, all right, give me a minute and let me work some things out. So I called 2 other sectors, and the controllers, you know, all agree with me. And I take him out east over the ocean, and I drop him down to about 8,000 feet, turn him up to the northeast, underneath the holding pattern on Long Island, and they bring him into Kennedy. Now he's in operations closing out the flight, and another captain comes in and says, who was on American 1450? And Sal looks at him, and he says, I was. And the captain says, how did you get here in front of me when I know you were behind me? He says, you got to have some friends in air traffic control. That was another story. One more Sal story. Here, I was at the academy after our strike in 1981, and my class, I gave them a break, and I ran down to my office, and I called Sal to see how he's doing, and his wife, Joni, answers. And God bless Joni. We're talking a little while, and I said, Joni, let me talk to Sal. I got to get back to my class. She says, isn't he with you? I said, well, Joni, let me look on my desk to see if I find a note. I said, what time did he leave? She says, 3 days ago. I said, you know, Joni, I've been getting home real late and leaving real early. Let me call the house and see if I missed something. And she says, you'd say anything for him, wouldn't you? I said, what are you talking about? She says, he's standing right here. So Joni got me wired totally, and my credibility with her has been gone ever since. And now, Bob, would you like to
Sure.
talk a little bit about maybe some icing, and we can resume pilot stories later?
Yeah, sure. Well, what I wanted to bring up is that we're going to have a little bit of a game coming up, okay? We have these wonderful items here. If we could bring it in a little bit on our shelf. We have our T-shirts over here. We have our cups. We have these wonderful coffee cups. And with the coffee cups, you can get your label or your work job experience put on the back of it. We have these fantastic booklets that'll tell you everything you always wanted to know about air traffic control, but were afraid to ask. We have luggage tags that you can have for your luggage. And we have these wonderful coasters to keep your tabletop from getting coffee stains or water rings with our logo. And if you want to direct anybody to our channel, it even has our QR code. And right below the QR code, you can have the facility that you worked at. So people can ask you about that. So, but going back to my information that I want to give you. On Tuesday, January 27th, the NTSB is going to have an open public meeting on their channel about the Washington Reagan helicopter and American Airlines incident that's going on. So if you've been following along with that and you want to get some more information on causes and maybe some of the implementations to provide more safety, that should be coming up on that channel. Now back to our trivia announcement. We're going to be offering these items, okay, in a trivia contest. And you'll see the trivia contest come up on a post. And if you can name the correct information, because you've watched our shows, we will send you, the winner will get one of these fabulous cups, or you get to rock one of these t-shirts. We'll just need to know your size. And we're going to run that probably for the entire month of February. So get ready, watch the shows, get prepared for some trivia questions, and be prepared to get a prize. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so other people can participate in the event. So, Fred, you got some more humor for us?
Oh, do we have humor? A friend of mine, Dory and I grew up in the old neighborhood together. And I've known him since we were about 9. I didn't see him after I was about 14, but now here I come to air traffic, and I'm there in the next week. I run into this guy. So it's been a long time, and we were in training about 6 months apart. And at various times, we would get together and enjoy friendship. And at one point, Dory and his wife got into alternate lifestyles, okay?
Fred,
Yes,
we
I
okay going with this
Yes,
subject?
we're doing fine.
All right.
We're doing fine. But now here, the things you do for friends.
Things I got to worry about.
Yeah, here we're, Dory's into alternate lifestyles, and he's talking about how great it is. You don't have to hide anything. You can be truthful and stuff. And at one point, I get a phone call, and it's about 6 o'clock in the morning. I answer the phone, and it's Dory, and he says, help. So I go to his house, and it turns out that he and his wife had just split up. His wife left him for a clergyman that she had met at one of their get-togethers. Okay. He only wants to get pictures of the two of them together. I said, Dory, you don't have any kids. You don't need pictures. But he swears, I mean, for months, he's talking about getting pictures. Okay. And now, he always talked about this boyfriend as the bunny rabbit. All right? So finally, I'm talking to him one day, and she had moved into the bunny rabbit's apartment in New Jersey. Okay. So I get my camera with high-speed film, and we're going to go to New Jersey, find out where the apartment is for the bunny rabbit and his wife, and take pictures. Okay. I had made another friend on the frequency, Mickey. Mickey was a corporate pilot, and he flew this airplane 100 TA, and I always called him 100 Transit Authority. Told him I'd had to charge him a $1.50 to fly over the Hudson River to get into the airport, and we became friends. We met for drinks at the World Trade Center at the top. Beautiful bar, not there anymore, but it was beautiful. And now Mickey and his wife break up, and Mickey is living single in this apartment. I picked Dory up this one day at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like 10 degrees out and freezing. We drive to New Jersey. I tried to be nonchalant and not visible, so I wore an olive green jacket and a black shirt. I picked Dory up. He's got a baby blue jacket with a ski hat with blue, red, and white stripes and a big red pom-pom on top, okay? And he got in the car. I said, you look about as conspicuous as a pink elephant. So we drive to New Jersey. We find the apartment building, but there's a guard there. So I leave my car out by the gate. We set up horn signals. If he saw them, he would start beeping. And I walk down the street. We're along the Hudson River, and it's cold. It's cold. We walk along the Hudson River, and I find a rowboat. I take the rowboat, and I row up the Hudson through the icebergs, and I get in the back of the parking lot. And I find her car, and now I see them walking out, and I start taking pictures. And now they get in their car and start driving out. As I'm taking the rowboat back down the Hudson, Dory sees them, and he's beeping a horn, beep, 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 with the signals. I get in the car, and it's rush hour, heading southbound in New Jersey, and we pull up alongside them. I take a couple of pictures. I go on the other side. Dory keeps popping up with the red pom-pom bouncing around. And we realize they're going down to the path tube. Of course, she works on Wall Street. We go down the train into the subway, and we follow them onto the train. We're in the next car, and I'm getting a few more pictures. We get off the train at the stop. She would get off. We ran up the steps. We are right by the building. Here they come down the street, and we're taking pictures. And at one point, I'd swear she looked right at me as I took pictures. And now I kind of melt into the building, and they go by. And I said, do we have enough pictures now? He says, yes. I said, okay. He says, you know, he really looks like a bunny rabbit. I said, okay, so what? He says, how about we come back tomorrow and I dress you in a bunny rabbit suit, and we attack him with cream pies. And he was serious, okay? I said, Dory, there is only so much I will do for a friend. So we went back into New Jersey to my friend Mickey's house, and we walk into the front door as his separated wife and he are there, and they had just decided to get together again the night before. And Kathy and Mickey get to see me and Dory come in with his ski hat with the red pom-pom on top. Mickey will always remember that story. And Mickey and I still talk periodically. We have a few more stories if you'd like to hear them, or...
No, well, we're going to talk a little bit more now about icing, okay? So I was talking with Fred this morning about the Washington Reagan Air Florida accident that happened many years ago. The 737 just got de-iced, and it ended up getting held more than 30 minutes on the ramp. So when they finally got into position, it had been almost 45 minutes to an hour before takeoff, and since they had been de-iced. And the conditions were perfect for icing. But the pilot took the runway, and they were cleared for takeoff. We danced the throttles. They were flying by the regs, and the next thing you know, the aircraft is not getting airborne. And he pushes the throttles all the way forward. Still, the only thing that's pushing that aircraft into the air are the engines, because lift doesn't exist. The icing has malformed the wings so that they're not operating as a lifting surface anymore. Bernoulli's principle is absent, okay? What happens, they hit the bridge just before the the main bridge, and you get the gear, the 14th Street Bridge, yes, they get the gear hits a couple of cars, and boom, into the water they go. So because of that, a lot of the pedestrians in the area got into the water, tried pulling people out of the accident. There were helicopters that were trying to get the people out. They were throwing these life preservers down to the people that were involved in the accident, and they couldn't hold on because the water was so cold. So out of that came regulations from the FAA that if you're not de-iced, if you're de-iced, you have to depart within 30 minutes or you're required to de-ice again, okay? That's one of the things. Another thing that came out of that were the lifesavers that were developed for this particular thing. When the water is so cold you can't hold on, these life savers, they can throw them out, you can put them around you, and when you pull up, the insides tighten around. They have kind of like a harness that actually, as it pulls in, it wraps around you so that even if you lose your grip, the harness is holding onto you. So that's one of the good things that happened out of it. So we have regulations that must be followed so that the icing, the anti-icing solvent doesn't deteriorate far beyond its limit to remove ice from the flying surfaces, and we have that life vest. So new things came out of it. If you look behind me, you'll see in real time FlightAware's air traffic flight following system. And just so you can see, maybe you could tune that in a little bit more, all of the aircraft that are not in the blue area and the purple area, it's all kind of being channeled around that, and most of the traffic is now in the Midwest to western part of the country. You'll see that Florida's got a lot of air traffic going through it, I'm sure just to get around that storm. And you can see the eastern edge of the storm and the western edge of the storm in that green area where traffic is being routed. So this is what we talk about when we're talking about traffic management. The sectors that normally handle that air traffic are empty, okay? The sectors that don't normally handle that air traffic are now probably at capacity. They probably have a radar man, a D-side, and a tracker in place to make sure that all eyes on traffic going through there and separation safety standards are maintained. So when you're taking a delay due to weather on the ground, you'll be more informed as to why. You can only get 5 pounds of airplanes into a 5-pound bag, right? You don't want to exceed the limit. So, well, Fred, that's my little bit on icing and air traffic, and even a little bit of information on traffic management throughout the country. Give us another one of your talented, funny stories.
You know, when I crossed the Hudson westbound, I got the nickname of the kosher cowboy. And there were times when we'd be busy and working, and again, my voice would stand out. You don't remember names, but everybody remembered the kosher cowboy. So there'd be controllers calling it the next sector or down at approach control, you know, yelling, "Kosher, kosher, I need some help. I got to get some of these planes out of here." And I had met these guys. There were times these relationships were built, and it was a two-way street. I remember this one time working in Houston and just buried in airplanes, had a long line of Houston airplanes coming in, and the controller was just taking them and working them. I got out for a break. I was going to go for coffee, but I decided, nah, I need to meet this guy. So I got in the car, drove down to approach control under the tower, and I walked in to find out who this controller was. I introduced myself, and I said, "I owe you, and I need to find out what you drink." I went back the next day with a nice bottle of booze for the fellow controller, and he always remembered the kosher cowboy. There were just lots of times where you had to think outside the box to come up with a solution because those planes are coming. And you had to come up with a decision on how to get them out. You couldn't just stop the traffic. Airplanes don't hover very well. If you have any kind of questions, you could call in and we could answer them for you. We also, what else? The humorous sides, once again.
Throw it back to me, Fred.
I'll give it back to Bob right now. And Bob can bring up a few things. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, a couple of months back, we posted and had as guest our B-17 restoration project. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to try to get them back on and see how well that B-17 restoration project is going. I'm sure everybody would like to find out. I don't know, Malcolm, you still have any of those pictures that we had on our log of the B-17 that they're restoring?
Yeah, let me see.
Okay, well, we could put those up behind us or just overlay them on top of us, but they, we even established a little bit of a link to their webpage if you want to help fund them. He's been doing it, how many years was it, Fred? 40-something years?
40, 44?
Something like 44
long
years.
time.
And they were looking for engines. They even had a company that tried helping them make one of the wing spars, but the wing spar came out to be almost $1 million for each one, and that was not gonna fit in their budget very well. They had, I think, a group from NASA come through there one time, and they've been promised some funds, but it had never really come through. So I can't wait to go back, see them out there in the barn, and I'll bet you right now there's nobody out in that barn. Here's part of the nose of that B-17, and there's our, look at this beautiful aircraft.
Held together with duct tape.
Yeah, well, you can see the blue duct tape down there. But that is a project of love. This guy's always wanted to restore that, and he had a unique story about how he got that. And you could look back on our live broadcast, and you could find out all about that B-17. And I remember we're running that trivia contest. There might be some questions on that B-17 for our trivia contest if you're interested in winning one of our shirts or coffee cups or name tags. Not name tags, but luggage tags. So, Fred, entertain us with another one of your humorous stories.
All right. I was working in a piece of airspace southwest of LaGuardia and Newark, and
that glare on that lens, right there.
you want to look like this? Okay. I was working a 300 kilo a Mitsubishi, and he's going up towards Teterboro, and now 100 TA, my buddy Mickey, comes up on the frequency, and he's further behind, and he hears me talking to this Mitsubishi, and he says, "Is that guy going up to Teterboro also?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "What's his position?" I said, "He's about 20, 30 miles ahead of you, but you're going to go by him. You're a lot faster." He says, "What altitude's he at?" I said, "He's out of 17 descending." He says, "Can you get me down low and let me cancel?" I said, "Okay." So I take him down, and he's 1,000 feet above the Mitsubishi. He gets below positive airspace, cancel the IFR, and he gets like 500 feet from the Mitsubishi and goes by his friend, rocking his wings as he goes by, and beeps his horn. So that was a nice piece of humor for the two of them, and I was glad I could accomplish it for them. Do we have anything else, Rob? Or I'll come up with another one?
No, you got some more? Go ahead.
Oh, I got, yeah. I've talked about the situation with the A4s and the hung rocket before. there was a controller in Washington Center. His name was Greg. And again, our talking back and forth, we were able to establish a relationship to the point where I even went down there and I spent the day on his farm baling hay with him. And he came up to New York, and we shared the day up there having bagels. And there was another situation. I was working traffic. I was working a low altitude sector, and I get a handoff on 5 Canadian call sign Cherokees, flying formation, going up to Montreal, okay? And this is true.
Well, I hope they're all true, Fred.
Yes. Anyways, I look at this flight plan and I said, what is this, a joke? Where do you get 5 Cherokees going up to Canada, flying formation? So I put remarks into the flight plan. Polish military fighters, try to help them out.
Oh my gosh, Fred.
Yes.
Well, I guess that was the day before political correctness came in. So let me entertain you with something that I had happen to me. Okay.
Let me finish this.
I don't know if they want.
No,
I don't know if we want to go any further on that one,
So
Fred.
good. No, it was good. Anyways,
right.
I work the guys.
I'm worried.
I get them to the end of my airspace and I turn them over. And now while I'm working, I see people with ties and suits on coming down and they're pulling out strips. And I said to one of the guys, what's going on? And he says, we're looking for the strips on these Canadian call sign Cherokees. I said, oh, they're right over there. He says, well, it turned out at their airspace, at their altitude, they flew through McGuire Approach's airspace.
Oh man, no, really?
Yes. Anyways, they went through McGuire Approach's airspace. And I said, well, I put that into the remarks, but there were 2 ways. You could press a note on the computer that it would just go from a piece of airspace to a piece of airspace in the center. But I pressed the wrong button, and the note went through all sectors through to their destination. And the note came out on McGuire Approach.
Oh my gosh.
That's not exactly the words they used, but
No, I'm sure.
so, McGuire Approach sees the note. They don't know if they should not allow these people through the airspace. It's a military base, and it's a foreign aircraft. So they call the base commander, who sees the note and gets pissed, calls the chief in New York, and they wanted to investigate. So they take me off the sector, and I start, I talked to my boss, and I said, well, let's go down and talk to the chief. It was just an error. And
Only an
we're
error.
walking down, and my boss says, the chief is really pissed. I said, he's really pissed? He said, he's really pissed. I said, I'll tell you what, you go down and talk to the chief. I'll go this way. I'll talk to everybody, and we'll make sure that nobody puts in such a terrible message again. That will never happen again. So, I go back to work. Everything calms down. But about 2 days later, I'm standing at the cafeteria online waiting to get breakfast as the chief comes up, and he's waiting for breakfast next to me. And I said, hello, Billy, how are you? He says, fine, how are you? And I said, what's been going on? He says, nothing much. And he says, have you worked any Polish Air Force fire? I said, not lately, but I heard what a terrible message that was.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, I'm still alive.
Yeah, here you are. Well, anyway, I was going to tell you a little bit about this trip I took out of Chicago O'Hare. When I was working up at Chicago Center, I used to go to a place on Wednesday nights. It was the last, I was working 6 days a week, and Wednesday was my day off. So if the bowling league if I wasn't doing my bowling team, I would stop by the place called the Schoolhouse in north of Aurora, Illinois. A lot of controllers and some of the fired controllers were in there. We got along okay. But there was this guy named Bill that we would play ship captain crew with. It's a dice game. And he would always give me such a hard time. And he knew that I would go to Vegas probably once every 2 to 3 months. I'd go out there on a junket. So he says, hey, when's the next time you're going to Vegas? I'd like to go with you. So we made an arrangement, and about 2 weeks after the Washington Air Florida incident into the Potomac was our trip to Vegas. So we fly out of O'Hare, and the connection was through Denver, Stapleton, okay, the old Denver Stapleton Airport. And our connection flight, we had about 2 hours on the ground. So we get off the plane, go to a cafeteria, we're sitting there and watching out the window, and across the way you could see the Continental, one of the Continental hangars, because Continental was still flying at the time. Big letters, Continental Airlines. And as we're sitting there, all of a sudden it starts to snow. And within about 10 to 15 minutes, you couldn't see 10 feet out the window, let alone see across the tarmac to the Continental Airlines. And Bill looks at me and says, hey, it looks like it's getting pretty bad out there. You think we're going to be okay? I said, yeah, we'll be okay. They'll de-ice us. We'll be fine. So we start walking out to there to get on our flight. We're not getting a delay yet. They start boarding the aircraft, and we get on, and we're sitting about 3 rows back, but just enough where you could see the wings. And Bill is kind of antsy looking out the window. He says, there's a lot of accumulation on those wings. Says, yeah, it's no problem. They'll de-ice us. And of course, all of a sudden they start de-icing, and you can see all of the ice and everything coming off the wings. So we start to taxi, and we taxi out to the runway, and then we get stopped. There's a delay. They're not letting anybody depart. So we're sitting out there on the ramp, waiting. 45 minutes go by. The snow, and the wings have a little bit of buildup on there. And Bill is looking, hey, you think we're going to be okay? You remember that Washington incident? Oh, yeah, we're going to be just fine. So we get to the end of the runway. We're going to take off. So now we pull on the runway, and Bill's been harassing me the whole time. And I had to, and just before that, about a week, 2 days before, I borrowed $10 from Bill, right? So that's part of the story. So we get on the runway, and the pilot's advancing the throttles. You could hear the engine spooling up, and we start going down the runway. And he says, man, it's taking a long time to get off. And I said, Bill, just for the safety of it, here's that $10 I used to owe you. And he looked at me, and his eyes got so big, he was like, oh no, is something going to happen? So fortunately, there was a couple of bumps. I think we hit a couple of snowdrifts that came across the runway. That's how fast it was snowing. But 2 thuds, and up in the air we go. And he quit giving me the old razzing after a while there. So, well, Fred, what do you think? We got enough on here for today?
I got one more.
All right, Fred, give him one more, okay?
Well, you mentioned Vegas.
Uh-oh.
And
are we okay?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, controllers, we used to every couple of months take trips to Vegas. And, we'd meet, a whole bunch of guys would meet from around the country and stuff. I wouldn't win a lot, I wouldn't lose a lot. But, okay. So now I'm getting divorced. And, she's this nice, friendly girl that wants...
Which one? Which number was that?
So it was number 1.
Oh, okay.
Nice girl, won't mention names, but, she just wanted 2 pints of blood out of me, not 1. And I came up with this great idea. Why spend all the money for lawyers to divide up this stuff? And this is a true story. And I walked in the house, and I said, so we can get this all done, cut and dry, we'll get it all done. We're going to play blackjack, best out of 7 for each item. And, I had to show her a little how to add up the numbers and stuff. But we started to play. I had to show her how to add them up again. Beginner's luck, she won the dining room set. Okay. She won the living room. She won the kitchen. She won the bedroom. And by the time I was done, I had won 3 cookbooks and 2 flower pots.
Somebody got hustled.
No, it's true. And, yeah, I got to that point, I said, excuse me, but can we stop now? I have to call Sal. I have to build me a bed. That was a true
All
story.
right. Well, thank you for
Okay.
that, Fred. That's a nice little
Yeah.
end of our story. Glad that you got out of that with your clothes. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a good time through all this weather. I mean, it is cold out there. We're doing this in our studio, which the studio is set up in the garage, and the temperature outside in Spring, Texas is probably about 30, 29, 30 degrees, and I don't have a heater in the garage. So we're just enjoying this.
We can always nuzzle.
That's okay, Fred. You don't have to get that close. We're friends, but not that kind of friends. All right. But anyway, thank you for joining us. Stay safe out there. Remember about the trivia contest. So watch those shows and get ready for some questions. And you too can be sporting one of these shirts or a coffee cup. Look forward to seeing your answers. The trivia questions will be posted on the community site where it says post, where you guys can post. So good luck to all of you. Thank you for joining us. And remember, when you're out there, learn to love everybody, okay? No matter what they think of.
Stay warm.
See you.